Revealing the Inner Inmate is an art exhibit created to start a grassroots conversation about how each of us can help reduce the number of people who return to prison. The United States has the dubious distinction of having more people in prison per capita than any other nation, even more than police states. Are Americans worse people than other people? If prisons are supposed to keep us safe, are we the safest country in the world? It's interesting to note that, according to Wikipedia, North Dakota has about 226 inmates per 100,000 people, while South Dakota has 416 per 100,000. Since our populations are quite similar, it begs the question, are South Dakotans twice as bad as people in North Dakota? A large part of the problem is that too many of those who serve their terms return to prison. Some of these people may be returning to prison because the world they are released to may not be ready to accept them or help them acclimate to their new environment. It seems that many people feel ex-offenders should be punished for the rest of their lives. This sets up conditions that tend to funnel ex-offenders right back into prison. This is not working for them, and it's not working for us. If we're not part of the solution, we are part of the problem. We need a public discussion about what we can do to help ex-offenders who want to work at becoming productive members of society. It's quite extraordinary what we expect of people. The expectation that a person falling from a tall building could save themselves simply by flapping their arms can be instantly recognized as absurd. But it is no more absurd than expecting a former inmate with no family, no friends, no job, and no place to live, no means of transportation, and only $50 to be expected to successfully reintegrate into a society which is totally foreign to him or her. As ridiculous as it is to expect people to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, this is a case where the person has no bootstraps or boots. Most of these bootless people will be marched right back into prison, and often other victims will be created along the way.
Some hardline people think that we're supposed to be punishing these people, not helping them. But regardless of whether it helps them or not, it's in our own enlightened self-interest to have better people when they join us. And it struck me as I was walking around looking at this, it makes you want to cry. Think of the talent that we have shuttered away from us. And just the artistic talent here. That doesn't even talk to all of the other individual talents that all of the people who did this artwork have. And for whatever reason, we have shut them away from us. And while they're there, we're not doing near what we could to help them to succeed when they come back to us. And Lawrence covered that really well. And he asks, what has the city of Aberdeen done? And I have to admit, I've been mayor 11 years. We have 250 employees, about that many temporary employees over the summer. And I don't know if any or how many of those are former inmates. I don't know legally if I'm supposed to know. Except for physicians that require background checks. But after seeing this and listening to Lawrence, I'm going to talk to my HR person this week. I'm going to say, how do we handle this if somebody comes in and applies for a job and either voluntarily or through questioning tells us that he spent some time in the state pen? Does that disqualify somebody from working on a broken pipe? I don't know. I'll find out. I am part of this thing from an expert on anything artistic, but what I do know about is social consequences of policy. And the way that we treat inmates is probably the most socially irresponsible failure to spend money to save money in the country. I read a statistic the other day that nationwide, I don't know what it is in South Dakota, nationwide among male prisoners, after 5 years, 75% have at least been back for a little while, if not more. That's on them for making a mistake again, but that's on us. That's on us for not preparing them when they leave and not helping them when they get here. So we need to talk to our legislators, we need to make our prisons better, and we need to stop and ask ourselves if there's anything we can do personally.
Imagine you are released from prison with $50. You don't know anyone outside of prison. You are disconnected from and disowned by your family and former friends. You have no job, and the skills you have are not marketable. Even if you have money, many people won't rent to you. You don't recognize most of the technologies which many people take for granted. You have never used a telephone or a computer. Social rules and expectations have changed while you are in prison. Now, can you design a strategy that will assure a chance for your getting your life back on track and staying out of prison? Would it be a practical plan with step-by-step solutions or just generalizations based on fantasy? You know, it's always easy to say what the government, churches, or others should do. But let's take a look inside ourselves and ask what each of us can do to help an inmate reintegrate into society. You may not have any idea at this moment of anything that you can do, but try brainstorming with your family, friends, and acquaintances. This is called crowdsourcing a solution. It's based on the idea that all of us together will always be smarter than any one of us. And while you're searching for a solution, try to be honest about the fears and reservations you might have interacting with former inmates. I'm going to take these comments back to the inmates and have a conversation with them about what they could do to help you to help them. If you can express concrete things you can do to help them, I want to engage them in a conversation about what they can do to meet you halfway. When you're looking at the art, try to imagine that the person who has created this art has more than likely done some terrible things, sometimes very terrible things. But none of us are all good, and none of us are all bad. So we have to start thinking about how to salvage what is good in people rather than giving up on them because they have flaws.
I work here at the Arc. I got to help put up the art show, and so it was really a unique experience for me because I was able to see each of them and put them up, and it gave me lots of time to look at them, and they're so wonderful and so powerful, and they just all of the artwork, it's just the time and the energy and the focus that went into it, it's incredible.
The social and coping skills that are important, even critical for survival in a prison, often don't work in life outside of prison. If you have been in prison for a while, your ability to cope with day-to-day life in the general population may have been all but destroyed. The inmate may have lost social skills we take for granted. Simple but critical things like shopping for groceries, cooking, driving an automobile, operating a cell phone or a computer may be skills that a former inmate doesn't have. Assuming the inmate ever had those skills, he or she will need time and support to regain those skills. Sometimes a former inmate just needs a non-judgmental, friendly face and empathetic ears. That's not so much different than the rest of us.
I'm Mark Marmer. Silverstein, professor of history at Northern State University. As you look at the beadwork and things like that, it's amazing. The one thing with over 300,000 beads in it, and you just think of all the time that went into it, and all the detail, and how beautiful those things end up. I was actually very. I don't think surprised exactly, but it was an optimistic feel. An awful lot of modern art is disturbing and distorted, and most of this was just plain beautiful, nice colors, like the things with the eagles and the wolves. Lots of neat stuff.
Some people may object to helping former inmates. After all, they have done something bad, and so why should we help bad people? If you or I pay in full for something, we don't expect to keep paying for it forever. When an inmate has served his or her sentence, that is to say, pay their debt to society, they should be able to start with a clean slate. To make them pay for the rest of their lives is cruel and unfair. If there is no chance to start anew once a debt has been paid, it reduces the incentive to go straight. And the harder we make it for them to reintegrate into society and form emotional bonds within our society, the more likely it is that they will commit more crimes and return to prison. In order for the inmate to be successful at reintegration into the society, they will need a period of decompression. Learning how to survive outside of the walls can be more frustrating and discouraging than going back to prison. This might be why so many are stuck in a revolving door in and out of prisons. We need to be thinking about these things. We need to be searching for solutions for these problems because the inmate's loss will likely be our loss. Not only is reincarceration expensive, there's a reasonable chance that someone other than the former inmate will be hurt in the process of them going back to prison. A child may lose a parent. A spouse may be abused. A family may lose a loved one. A company might lose a valued employee. And all of us will lose someone who could have been making valuable contributions to society.
I just thought more about them rather than differently. They have been on my mind ever since I knew this show was going to happen. Wondering what we would see, what we would hear, who would come to see it, how people would feel about it, and what they would have to say. I know that I have limited energy and limited opportunity, but some of the things I could do right here in Aberdeen would be a contact person or contact people myself if I knew that they might need my help, which would be in the way of taking them to some places I know would be comfortable, like our coffee house, the Red Rooster, is such a great place for everybody, anybody. Very inclusive, and that would be a nice place for them.
My name is Jim Johnson, and I'm a professional graphic designer as well as a visual artist. And I've taught design and art in Minneapolis at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design and University of Minnesota. So I've had a lot of experience in art and design. And I was on the staff of the Walker Art Center for 10 years. So I've been involved in a lot of art programs and met a lot of artists. But the thing that I'd like to talk about is some of the artists in this show, which I'm very impressed with. And the one that sort of stands out for me is Fred Seeley, who does some wonderful interpretive, expressionistic, definitely a whole vision that's unusual by himself. He's very much of a standout. I mean, he must have 4 or 5 really nice pieces there. And I think he has a very innate talent that certainly needs to be pursued. And Guy Coltier with that wolf drawing, fabulous wolf drawing. Richard Maletsky, big drawing of the Big Sioux River, print, beautiful, very nicely done. Christopher Hartford, that Age of Spirituality piece is just a knockout. I would think that would you could have that in any gallery in this country. The drawings of Jerry Eagleman were, especially the hand drawing is beautiful. Just a great hand to be able to draw all those things.
I feel like a lot of creativity and hidden things inside that, they're wanting to come out and express themselves, and they're just like us, and, they have their feelings, and you can just feel their expressions. And a lot of things that I saw were like expressed, I think, freedom to me, because, they had the outside and dancing, and a lot of nature and things, and I feel like that's, being free and, feeling freedom in itself and stuff. And I really like that because I could, feel at home, because we all kind of like look for that kind of freedom, When you think of inmates, you think of scary, mean, tough people and stuff, and I feel like through art you can kind of realize that they're human beings, and they were human beings when they were in and when they went in, and they're human beings when they come out. And I mean, we all have our mistakes and flaws, but like when you see, it's not, you wouldn't think, oh, this is artwork of a prisoner, it's not violent, it's not gruesome, it's not scary, it's, beautiful and very, touching. I think it kind of made me realize, more that, they're like us, and, they want to be out in society and, make a life for themselves.
I'm Jill Warner. I'm the pastor at Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ. It was actually quite amazing because I walked into the building with a lot of angst in my soul. I had been on a blog that was very contentious, and I was still angry. And I walked in, and there was this sense of calm as I looked at the artwork here. And it really calmed my soul. I would say that I was amazed at the sense of freedom that I saw in the artwork. I think of prison cells as closed in. And so to see that sense of freedom in the artwork tells me something about the depth of the soul of an inmate.
Family is sometimes what you're born with, but sometimes it's what you make. Many of these inmates come from environments that are set up for sending them right back to prison. If they're going to be productive citizens, they will need an environment that encourages and supports good citizenship. If we can't provide that, then we are part of the problem when we need to be part of the solution. Each of us has a network of some kind. Each of us has resources of varying kinds. Each of us has skills in coping in our society. Being a functioning member of society requires knowing about the resources available in your community and beyond. The newly freed inmate may not have these networks, resources, and skills. These networks, resources, and skills can be the glue that binds an inmate to a life as a respected and productive member of society. Being that go-to person for a former inmate may come down to being aware and being available. That is to say, being aware of the resources that are critical to coping in your society and making yourselves and those resources available to the former inmate.
Mitakuyapi, my relatives. My name is Crystal Owen, and I am a member of the Siston Mopton Dakota Oyate. I'm here today to view the art show, and I want you to know that it's very beautiful, very moving. I'm glad that I was invited. I'm glad that this program was put together, and that all of you who put your artwork in to share with the community was awesome. They asked us one question about how we can help those who are behind the walls or in prison. There's one way that I can help is I can listen. But the only way that I can listen or help you, the only way anybody can listen to you or help you is if you ask for the help. I just want to say that the first step when you get out, you have to ask for the help. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. Be courageous. You did your time, and now it's going to be time for your life to move forward. And stay out. Don't go back in there. You have relatives, you have friends who love you and who care about you. So I just want to say that take that first step to stay focused, to be courageous, and if you want somebody to help you and to listen to you, you have to take that first step and you have to ask for it. So there's many people out here who are supporting you. Pidalmia.
Because our justice system has been centered around vengeance and retribution, we haven't put nearly enough emphasis on rehabilitation and reintegration. Our need for vengeance has overshadowed our need to rehabilitate and reintegrate. It has even overshadowed our need for security, because prisoners going back into the prison system often hurt others on their way back. And when we have talked about rehabilitation, we have talked about it as something that should happen in the prison. We have somehow expected the prison system to create model citizens out of these former offenders. We have thought that if we make them miserable enough in prison, they will do anything not to go back. This approach has failed. Our prison systems cannot create model citizens. Many of them try, but they're simply overwhelmed with just keeping the prisoners in prison. Prisons are drowning in mental patients that we would rather warehouse in prison than give the proper medical treatment they need. And even if they were capable of making model citizens out of mental patients and social misfits, if the community still insists on treating the rehabilitated prisoners like criminals, all of that work will be in vain.
My name is Holly Gutierrez, and I'm an employment specialist at the Department of Labor and Regulation. I felt immense talent and joy from the colors and the art and the beadwork and the painting, and I just felt like there was so much talent there, and it just filled me with joy. It did make me think of inmates differently, because I think we forget how much talent there is in people, and I think we overlook that and we concentrate sometimes on the things that are negative, and I think art makes people seem more human, and it seems like sometimes we have a tendency to dehumanize people who are in prison. Well, the job that I do at the Department of Labor and Regulation, I work a workforce training program in which one of the eligibility requirements of the program is to help felons and former inmates obtain full-time employment. So in my daily job every day, it's a passion of mine to help people, and I would just hope that anyone coming out of prison would come see an employment specialist within days of being released from prison. And I can actually help with 2-year technical schools, helping people find jobs, on-the-job trainings. I can help with college, school, even housing, and perhaps rent and transportation assistance, and even helping with medical bills. And there's so much that I personally do through my job, but as a person, not as a state worker, I think I could just do my best to maybe try to reach out more to people who are actually in prison now. I do financially help St. Dismas, but I feel like I could do more individually on a one-on-one basis for people.
So while we can look to government agencies and other institutions to work on closing the revolving doors to prisons, we may be able to do more than they can. Reducing the number of people who return to prison is a job for those of us outside of the prison walls. We have more resources to do this than the prison system. We stand to benefit more than the prison system. We simply have to turn our attention to the task. It is not as important that one person does a lot as it is for everyone to do a little. No one of us can do everything, but each of us can do something. What are you willing to do?